My husband went out to buy me a birthday cake, and feeling bored, I turned on the drone he had left on the coffee table, intending to view the scenery outside the window. However, the last footage recorded by the drone's camera showed a hotel windowsill, where a strange woman dressed only in a bathrobe was making a heart gesture toward the lens. Ethan brother, next time just fly right in. Oh, and don't forget to make it clear to her tonight the child can't be without a father. My vision darkened, and the remote nearly slipped from my hand. My husband is named Ethan. Whose child? I immediately dialed his phone. What's going on with your drone? There's a strange video in it. On the other end, his breathing hitched, followed by a dry laugh. Oh, I lent it to a friend for a wedding shoot last time, maybe forgot to delete it. What's wrong? I smiled and said it was nothing, then hung up. Afterward, based on the hotel logo in the video, I drove straight there. The car was parked in the shadows across from the hotel. My hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles turning white. The video from the drone replayed in my mind the woman's face, the words, "The child can't be without a father," like a dull knife slicing through nerves. Ethan's lie was so clumsy, he didn't even bother to fabricate a more believable excuse. A friend's wedding? Which friend's wedding would involve filming such a video in a hotel bedroom? I waited for about half an hour. From the hotel's revolving door, Ethan and that woman emerged. The woman intimately linked her arm with his, her smile blooming like a flower. Her name is Joyce, my father's private health advisor, whom I personally hired for him. She claimed she could use some energy therapy to alleviate my father's Alzheimer's symptoms. Now it seems what she truly healed was my husband. Ethan's face showed a tenderness and patience I had never seen. He lowered his head to listen to Joyce, a smile perpetually on his lips. It was my birthday, he was supposed to buy me a cake. He was indeed carrying a cake box, but he handed it to Joyce. Joyce took it with delight, standing on tiptoe to kiss him on the cheek. In Ethan's other hand was a deep blue folder. I recognized it was from my father's study, used to store family trust documents. Why was it in his hand? Why was it appearing here with him and Joyce? A chill instantly froze my limbs. I didn't rush down. I just quietly watched them get into a car and disappear into the traffic. I started the car, turned around, and drove back home. The house was empty, eerily silent. I entered my father's study. The safe behind the desk was ajar. I walked over, entered the password, and opened it. The deep blue folder was gone. In its place was another identical folder, just slightly newer in color. I opened it, the documents inside were brand new, emitting the scent of ink. Flipping to the last page, the authorizer's signature was my father's shaky handwriting. Next to it was a red fingerprint. Due to his illness, my father's hands trembled so much that he couldn't write such a complete name. I took out my phone and dialed a number. "Mason, it's me, Lynn." A steady male voice came from the other end. "Lynn? What's wrong? I need you to check on someone for me." I said Joyce's name. Mason is my father's old friend, now in the private investigation business with extensive connections. His efficiency was astonishing. The next afternoon, a detailed report on Joyce arrived in my email. Joyce, 26 years old, original name Chiao Xiaohong. The overseas energy therapy certification on her resume was forged. She had no medical or nursing background, her only work experience was as a client relations manager at several high-end clubs. The report included several photos, screenshots from her social media accounts. In the photos, she was wearing the limited edition watch I gave Ethan last year, driving the Maserati registered under my name, with the caption, "Some people are born to be loved." Another photo showed her lying in a hospital bed, holding a pregnancy test report, with a happy smile on her face. Caption, "Baby, Daddy will come to pick us up soon." Posted 3 days ago. I enlarged the photo, the name on the pregnancy report was Joyce. My heart sank to the bottom so the words, "The child can't be without a father," were true. At the end of the email, Mason added a sentence, "Lynn, this woman is not simple, she might have someone behind her. Be careful." I shut down the computer and sat in the darkness for a long time. When Ethan returned, I was sitting on the living room sofa. He carried a cake, with an apologetic smile. "Honey, sorry, there was an emergency at the company yesterday. I've been busy until now." "Happy birthday, even if it's a day late." He placed the cake on the coffee table and tried to hug me. I sidestepped. His arms froze in midair, and his smile stiffened. "What's wrong?" he asked, with a hint of nervousness in his tone. I looked at him calmly and asked, "What was the emergency yesterday that required you to take my dad's trust documents to a hotel?" Ethan's face changed instantly. His face turned as pale as paper. He opened his mouth but couldn't utter a word. "You also let her drive my car and wear my watch." I continued, my voice steady. "Ethan, do you think I'm particularly stupid?" The panic in his eyes turned to anger. "You followed me?" He raised his voice, trying to mask his guilt with fury. "Lynn, what about the basic trust between us?" "Trust?" I laughed out loud. "When I saw you handing my dad's trust documents to that woman, what was left between us besides scheming?" "What do you know?" He exploded instantly. "Dad's health is deteriorating. The trust needs a more professional person to manage. Miss Joyce is an expert in this area." "Expert?" I repeated the word, finding it utterly ironic. "An expert who hooks rich men in clubs." Ethan's face flushed red. He knew he couldn't hide anymore. He took a deep breath, as if making a major decision. "Yes, I love Joyce, she's pregnant with my child." He went all in. "Lynn, let's divorce. For the sake of our marriage, I'll give you some of the property." "Your child?" I looked at him, asking word by word. "Ethan, are you sure it's your child?" He was stunned. I threw another set of documents from Mason at his face. They were intimate photos of Joyce with several other men in different settings, with overlapping timelines. "You think you're her only Ethan brother?" I said coldly. "You're just the biggest fish in her pond." Ethan's body swayed. He looked at the photos in disbelief, his lips trembling. "Impossible, this can't be." "Nothing's impossible." I stood up, looking down at him. "I'll give you 1 day to return everything intact, then get out of this house. Otherwise, who knows where these photos will end up." With that, I didn't look at him anymore and went straight upstairs. I thought the matter would end there. I underestimated Ethan's shamelessness and overestimated his position in Joyce's heart. The next day, he didn't leave. Instead, he brought Joyce and brazenly moved into the guest room. He also invited several respected elders from the family, under the guise of mediating family conflicts. In the living room, the elders sat in a circle, each with a solemn expression. Ethan sat in the main seat, looking heartbroken. Joyce sat beside him, with her barely noticeable belly, crying pitifully like pear blossoms in the rain. "Uncles and aunts, I know I've wronged Lynn in this matter." Ethan spoke first, his voice full of sincerity, "but my feelings for Joyce are genuine, and the child in her belly is innocent. I'm willing to leave with nothing, just to give them a proper status." A highly respected third uncle cleared his throat. "Lynn, you see, Ethan was just momentarily confused, but his attitude in admitting his mistake is good. You've been married for so many years without children, men always want heirs. Why not fulfill them? You can get compensation, part amicably, and avoid making it too ugly." Another cousin aunt chimed in. "Yes, Lynn, the woman is already pregnant, it's a done deal. If you hold on, it's our Lynn family that will lose face in the end." I sat opposite them, listening to these twisted words, laughing in anger. They cared not about my grievances but the Lynn family's reputation and whether Ethan, this virtuous son-in-law, could continue to bring them benefits. "Third uncle, cousin aunt." I spoke, my voice not loud, yet it silenced the living room instantly. "You're right, the child is innocent. But before deciding whether this child should be born, shouldn't we first figure out who the father really is?" I slammed a stack of photos on the coffee table. They were intimate shots of Joyce with those men. The elders exchanged glances, picked up the photos, their expressions becoming vividly varied. Ethan's face turned green instantly. Joyce's crying stopped abruptly. She looked at the photos in horror, her body shaking uncontrollably. "This is slander," she screamed. "These photos are all photoshopped. Ethan, brother, you have to believe me, you're my only man." She threw herself into Ethan's arms, crying even harder. Ethan held her, his face changing unpredictably, clearly shaken. "Lynn," he glared at me, "to force me, you're using such despicable tactics." I laughed. "Despicable? Ethan, which of us is more despicable?" I stood up and walked in front of them. "You deceived my dad, forged trust documents, trying to transfer the Lynn family's assets to this woman's name. Do you think I didn't know?" As soon as these words were spoken, the whole room was shocked. The elders' gazes shot toward Ethan uniformly. You're talking nonsense." A flash of panic crossed Ethan's eyes. "I'm managing Dad's trust, but every account is clear. When have I ever transferred assets?" "Is that so?" I sneered. "Then in the new trust document in my dad's study, how did the beneficiary on the last page change from just me to you and Joyce?" Ethan's face turned completely pale. He didn't expect me to know even this. He stared at me intently, his eyes no longer angry but filled with naked killing intent. "Lynn, don't spout blood libel." He gritted his teeth, squeezing out the words one by one. "Whether I'm spouting nonsense, everyone will know soon." I scanned the stunned elders. "My dad's 70th birthday is next week. At that time, I'll invite the family trust lawyer and explain this matter clearly in front of all relatives and friends." "You dare?" Ethan growled lowly. "Watch if I dare." I met his gaze without flinching. The atmosphere reached a deadlock. At that moment, a noise came from upstairs. My father, in pajamas, rubbing his eyes, came down groggily. "What's the noise?" In the middle of the night. Seeing the room full of people, he paused. "What day is it today? Why is everyone here?" Joyce, as if seeing a savior, immediately broke free from Ethan's embrace and threw herself at my father's feet. "Uncle Henry, you have to stand up for me," she cried. "The young miss, she wronged me and wants to drive me away. If I leave, who will take care of you?" My father's Alzheimer's fluctuated. At this moment, he was clearly confused. He looked at the crying Joyce, then at me, his face full of confusion. "Lynn, what's going on? Isn't Joyce doing well? Why do you want to drive her away?" Ethan immediately chimed in. "Dad, don't worry. Lynn is just having a little tantrum with me, it's nothing serious. Go upstairs and rest, I've got this." As he spoke, he signaled me with his eyes, the threat implicit. He wanted to use my father's illness to pressure me, but he miscalculated. I walked to my father's side and supported him. "Dad, do you remember? You said everything in the Lynn family is to be left only to me." I said softly. "You also said, whoever dares to scheme against the Lynn family, break their legs." In my father's cloudy eyes, a flicker of clarity seemed to pass. He looked at me, then at Ethan and Joyce, his lips moving but no words coming out. Ethan's heart sank. He knew today's mediation had completely failed. The elders also sensed something wrong and stood to leave one by one. Soon, only the four of us remained in the living room. Ethan stared at me intently, his gaze as if he wanted to devour me alive. "Lynn, do you have to make things so absolute? You were the one who made it absolute first." I retorted coldly. He suddenly laughed, a sinister and eerie smile. "Fine, very good. Lynn, just wait, we'll see." With that, he pulled Joyce up from the ground and left without looking back. Watching their disappearing figures, I felt no joy of victory. I knew this was just the beginning. My father's 70th birthday arrived as scheduled. The banquet was set on the lawn of our family estate, with guests gathered. Almost all the city's elites were present. I wore an appropriate gown, linking arms with my father, smiling and greeting each guest. Father was in good spirits today, his thinking clearer than usual. Ethan and Joyce also came. Ethan wore an expression of suppressed grief, as if he had suffered immense injustice. Joyce was in plain white, without makeup, looking pitiably delicate. As soon as they appeared, they drew many sympathetic glances. I knew Ethan hadn't been idle these days. He must have spread rumors outside about me being jealous, overbearing, and unfilial. Midway through the banquet, it was time for speeches. Ethan, as the virtuous son-in-law, was the first to take the stage. He emotionally recounted his interactions with my father, portraying himself as a paragon of filial piety. Then, he shifted tone, his voice choking up. I know there have been some misunderstandings between Lynn and me recently, worrying everyone. I admit, it's my fault, I didn't handle the family relations well. He bowed deeply. But please believe, my devotion to the Lynn family and my filial piety to Dad are evident to heaven and earth. I'm willing to give everything to make up for my mistakes. Sparse applause sounded from below. Many people's looks toward me carried reproach. Ethan's performance wasn't over. He looked at Joyce, his eyes filled with deep affection. And Miss Joyce, she is a highly professional health advisor, caring for Dad with all her heart. But due to some baseless suspicions, she has suffered great injustice. Here, I apologize to her. He bowed again. Joyce stood below the stage, tears sliding down perfectly timed, cooperating seamlessly. What a grand play of deep affection, enduring humiliation, and bearing burdens. I sat below, leisurely cutting my steak, a cold smile curling my lips. When Ethan's performance ended, the host was about to announce the next segment. I stood up. Wait a moment. All eyes focused on me. Holding my wine glass, I slowly walked onto the stage and took the microphone from the host. Thank you all for taking time from your busy schedules to attend my father's birthday banquet. And thank my dear husband for that heartfelt performance just now. I deliberately emphasized dear. Ethan's face changed slightly. Originally, family scandals shouldn't be aired publicly, but since someone insists on bringing it to the stage, I don't mind letting everyone see an even more exciting show. I snapped my fingers. The large screen in the center of the banquet hall suddenly lit up. What appeared was not warm family photos, but a drone aerial video. The scene showed the familiar hotel, the familiar windowsill. Joyce in a bathrobe, making a heart to the camera. Ethan brother, next time just fly right in. Oh, and don't forget to make it clear to her tonight the child can't be without a father. The clear dialogue spread through the speakers across the entire banquet hall. The audience was in an uproar. Everyone's gazes swept back and forth between Ethan, Joyce, and me, filled with shock and gossip. Joyce's face turned deathly pale, her body swaying. Ethan's expression alternated between green and white, as if he had swallowed a fly. This is forged, he roared at me. Lynn, you're crazy. Don't rush, this is just the appetizer. I smiled slightly, the more exciting part is yet to come. The screen switched. The scene changed to a private room in a cafe. Ethan and Joyce were talking with a man wearing glasses. The man took out a document from his briefcase and handed it to Ethan. Mr. Ethan, as per your request, the new trust document is ready. Just have Mr. Henry sign and fingerprint it, and this document will have legal effect. The Lynn family's assets will then be yours and Miss Joyce's. In the video, Ethan took the document and smiled satisfied. Well done. When it's done, you won't be shortchanged. Then, the scene switched again. This time in my home study. Ethan held the forged document, teaching my father to sign hand over hand. My father looked bewildered, like a marionette. Dad, come, follow me to write, Ethan. The video ended with Ethan grabbing my father's hand and forcibly pressing a red fingerprint on the document. When the video finished, the banquet hall was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Everyone was stunned speechless by the shocking reversal. Ethan and Joyce were ashen-faced. Now, I held the microphone, walking in front of them, my voice ice-cold and sharp as a blade. Who can tell me what is forged? After the dead silence came an uproar. The guests exploded, discussions, accusations, exclamations merging into a torrent, nearly drowning Ethan and Joyce. Oh my God, truly know the face but not the heart. Even deceiving his father-in-law's life-saving money, what a beast. That woman is no good either, a mistress trying to become the wife. Ethan was completely panicked. He wanted to explain, to defend, but in the face of ironclad video evidence, any words seemed pale and powerless. He could only repeat over and over, "No, she framed me, the video is fake." Joyce collapsed to the ground, her makeup smeared all over her face, clutching her belly and wailing dryly, "My belly, it hurts so much, my child." However, this time, no one sympathized with them. The family elders all had livid faces. Third uncle trembled with rage, pointing at Ethan's nose and cursing, "You heartless ingrate." The Lynn family was truly blind. Ethan, seeing the tide had turned, fixed me with a venomous gaze. "Lynn. You've ruined me. I won't let you go." He lunged at me like a madman. My bodyguards immediately stepped forward and pinned him down. The banquet turned into a complete farce. I had the bodyguards escort Ethan and Joyce out. Then, I went on stage and bowed deeply to all the guests. "Sorry for letting everyone see this joke. Today is my father's birthday banquet, I don't want it disturbed by these filthy matters." The banquet continues. My composure calmed the scene, and the guests' looks toward me added respect. After the banquet, I received a message from Mason. "Ethan has started counterattacking." I clicked the link, the internet was already exploding. Tearful short essays appeared out of nowhere. In the articles, I became a scheming, control-freak villainess from a wealthy family. Ethan was portrayed as an oppressed, schemed-against tragic hero fighting back for love and child. Those videos were claimed to be traps I meticulously planned and maliciously edited. They also released so-called evidence. For example, a recording of me forcing Ethan to sign an unequal prenup, edited. For example, chat records of me insulting Joyce, photoshopped. In no time, public opinion reversed completely. Countless uninformed netizens flooded my social accounts, cursing and attacking me. The most venomous is a woman's heart. Does money mean you can do whatever you want? Let that poor pregnant woman go. Ethan even accepted an online interview. In front of the camera, he looked haggard, tearfully accusing me of atrocities, appealing to society for justice. That wasn't all. He actually filed a lawsuit in court, requesting to become my father's sole guardian on the grounds of my father's unstable mental state. If he succeeded, all Lynn family assets would be under his control. The family WeChat group exploded. Some distant relatives who were close to Ethan before started jumping out to support him. Although Ethan made a mistake, he's genuine toward the old man. Lynn went too far this time, completely disregarding the family reputation. Letting Ethan be the guardian is better than letting an outsider meddle in Lynn family affairs. Looking at those twisted messages on my phone, I felt no anger, only absurdity. Ethan was tearing off all pretense, fighting to the end. Fine. I put down the phone and dialed Mason. "Mason, the plan can begin." I needed lethal evidence. Evidence that would make Ethan unable to turn over forever, with no way to quibble. Mason told me he had found some new things. Ethan had accumulated huge gambling debts outside. To repay them, he targeted the Lynn family's trust fund. And Joyce was not just his lover. She was also responsible for using a special health supplement to condition my father's body. The main ingredient in that health supplement was a drug that damages the nervous system and exacerbates cognitive impairment. In simple terms, they were poisoning my father. Hearing this news, my blood froze throughout my body. This was no longer just scheming for money but harming life. "Is there evidence?" My voice trembled. Looking for it, Mason said, "I've sent people to tail Joyce closely. We've locked onto the underground clinic where she gets the drugs each time. As long as we get drug samples and transaction records, we can nail him." "Not enough." I said, "I don't just want to convict him, I want him ruined, with nothing left." I needed more direct, undeniable evidence. I turned my gaze to the drone at home. Ethan might have forgotten that this drone has real-time cloud storage. All flight paths and recordings are automatically uploaded to the cloud server. Even if he deleted local files, the cloud still had backups. I logged into the cloud account. There were dozens of videos, recording every flight of the drone over the past 6 months. I patiently watched them one by one. Most were Ethan using it for aerial scenery shots. But a few caught my attention. The drone's flight endpoint wasn't the hotel but a remote abandoned factory. In the video, Ethan and Joyce were trading with a ferocious-looking man. The man handed them a black bag, and Ethan handed over a stack of cash. "How effective is this drug?" Ethan asked. "Rest assured, colorless and odorless, mixed in food, even gods won't notice," the man said with a sinister smile. "In less than 3 months, that old man will become a drooling idiot, and then won't he be at your mercy?" Joyce was somewhat afraid. Won't it kill him?" "What, scared now?" Ethan sneered. Who was the one crying and shouting to become a wealthy madam? "If you want the money, you have to go all out." The video ended abruptly there. I sat in front of the computer, my body ice cold. The man I shared a bed with for 10 years could be so ruthless. I packaged this video along with all other evidence and sent it to Mason. "Mason, time to close the net." The guardianship hearing was held in a small deliberation court. Present were me and Ethan, several family representatives, and lawyers from both sides. Ethan looked confident of victory. His lawyer spoke eloquently, portraying him as a great figure who, to protect his father-in-law's assets, didn't hesitate to face his mentally unstable wife in court. And I was a venomous woman blinded by jealousy, trying to slander her husband and father with forged videos. He spoke emotionally, even eliciting sympathetic expressions from the family elders in the audience. When it was our turn to speak, my lawyer didn't rush to refute. He simply submitted an application to the judge. "Your Honor, we apply to play a new piece of evidence in court." Ethan's lawyer immediately objected. "Objection. This doesn't comply with procedure." Who knows what forged thing they'd brought out again? The judge looked at my lawyer. My lawyer smiled slightly. "Your Honor, the source of this evidence is absolutely legal, and it will reveal the truth of the entire incident." The judge pondered for a moment and nodded. Application approved. The large screen in the deliberation court lit up. What played was the video I found in the drone's cloud: the abandoned factory, the sinister transaction, the vicious dialogue. Every frame, every word, struck like a heavy hammer on everyone's hearts. The smugness and confidence on Ethan's face cracked inch by inch. When the video uttered "in less than 3 months, that old man will become a drooling idiot," his face was ashen. He looked at the screen in disbelief, then turned sharply to me, his eyes filled with terror and despair. He never imagined that his supposedly flawless plan was recorded by his own hand. When the video finished, the room was dead silent. Everyone's gazes pierced Ethan like sharp swords, filled with shock, anger, and contempt. "No, it wasn't me." His lips trembled, his voice like a leaking bellows. "This isn't real, it's synthesized, she framed me." My lawyer ignored his howls and turned to the judge. "Your Honor, besides this video, we have physical evidence." He presented a document. "This is the lab report of samples extracted from Mr. Henry's daily diet by our client, and the drugs found in Miss Joyce's room. Identified by authoritative institutions, both have identical components, containing a neurotoxin named XXXX. This toxin, taken long-term, causes severe cognitive impairment, commonly known as Alzheimer's." He presented another document. "This is Mr. Ethan's bank statements and gambling site betting records. The records show he lost nearly $10 million in the past year. The funds he used to buy drugs for Miss Joyce came from his embezzlement of the Lynn Family Trust Fund." Ironclad evidence. Ethan collapsed completely in his chair, his face bloodless. The family representatives were so angry they couldn't speak. Third uncle stood up directly, pointing at him, lips trembling for a long time, finally spitting out 2 words, "Call the police." The deliberation court door was pushed open. Several uniformed police officers entered. They went straight to Ethan, showing handcuffs. "Mr. Ethan, you are suspected of intentional injury, fraud, and embezzlement. Please come with us." Ethan didn't resist. He just stared at me intently, his eyes full of venom and reluctance. As he was led out of the deliberation court, he suddenly laughed. That smile was manic and desperate. "Lynn, you won. But you've also lost me forever." I looked at him and replied calmly, "Thank you, this is truly the best news I've heard in my life." After Ethan was taken away, Joyce was soon summoned by the police. She was much more fragile than Ethan. She didn't last long in the interrogation room before confessing everything. To seek leniency, she even voluntarily handed over a trump card. It was a voice recorder containing several private conversations between her and Ethan. In the dialogues, Ethan detailed how to administer the drugs, forge documents, transfer assets, and after success, how to ditch me and live happily ever after with her. He also smugly said, "That stupid woman Lynn still thinks I really love her. She's just my stepping stone to financial freedom. Once I get the money, I'll have someone take care of her, disguise it as an accident. Then, the entire Lynn family will be ours." This recording became the final straw that broke the camel's back. Joyce asked her lawyer to contact me, hoping to meet. I refused. A few days later, at my doorstep, I saw Joyce kneeling on the ground. She looked haggard, clutching her belly, crying heartbrokenly. "Miss Lynn, I was wrong. I really was wrong." She hugged my legs, begging bitterly, "I was deceived by Ethan too. He said he loved you but would divorce you to marry me, that's why I was deluded. Please, for the child's sake, let me go." I looked at her coldly. "Child?" I asked, "Which child? The one in your belly, or the one in the video?" Joyce's crying paused, a flash of guilt on her face. "You think I don't know? The pregnancy report you used to threaten Ethan is fake. You're not pregnant at all." Joyce's face turned deathly pale instantly. She didn't expect me to know even this. "You. What about me?" I shook off her hand. "Put away your pitiful act. You committed a crime, you should accept legal punishment. If you want to plead, go to the judge, not me." With that, I ignored her, turned, entered the house, and closed the door. Outside, her more shrill cries and curses came, but I turned a deaf ear. The trial process was faster than I imagined. With the drone video, voice recorder, and various physical evidence, the facts were clear, and the evidence solid. All charges against Ethan and Joyce were established. Ultimately, Ethan was sentenced to 20 years in prison for multiple crimes and had all personal assets confiscated. Joyce, due to meritorious performance and providing key evidence, was sentenced to 5 years in prison. On the sentencing day, I didn't go to court. It was Mason who called to tell me the result. "Lynn, it's all over." His voice carried the relief of unloading a heavy burden. I responded, feeling calm inside. There was no thrill of revenge, only the relief after pulling out a rotten tooth. I hung up and walked to my father's room. He was sitting in a rocking chair by the window, basking in the sun. After stopping the drugs, under professional doctor's care, his spirits had improved a lot. Although his memory was still somewhat confused, at least he could recognize me. "Dad." I walked over and squatted beside him. He turned his head, his cloudy eyes looking at me, revealing a childlike smile. "Lynn, you're here." He extended his withered hand and patted my head. "Don't be afraid, Dad's here." My tears surged instantly. I buried my head in his knees and cried loudly, all pretenses breaking in that moment. Father didn't speak, just used his wrinkled hands to gently pat my back over and over, just like when I was a child. I cried for a long time before lifting my head and wiping away tears. "Dad, it's all over." It's over," he said smiling. The sunlight outside warmly shone on us. 1 year later, I officially took over the Lynn Group. Facts proved I was more suitable for this position than Ethan. Under my decisive reforms, the group's performance not only didn't decline but rose to a historical high. I also established a charitable foundation in my father's name, specifically to help elderly people who have been scammed and abused. At the foundation's inaugural banquet, as the chairperson, I went on stage to speak. Under the spotlights, looking at the faces below, I felt myriad emotions. We cannot prevent darkness, but we can choose to become a beam of light. We cannot eradicate evil, but we can choose to build defenses. I hope this foundation can become that beam of light, that defense. Thank you all. I bowed, and thunderous applause erupted below. Stepping off the stage, Mason approached with a glass of champagne. Well said. He smiled. If your dad saw you now, he'd surely be proud. I smiled. He already has. After the banquet, I walked alone to the estate's terrace. The night breeze was cool, stirring my hair. I took out my phone and flipped to a photo. It was Ethan's prison photo. In it, he had a shaved head, haggard face, empty eyes, no longer the spirited man of the past. I looked at that face, feeling complete calm inside, and pressed delete. The photo vanished, and this person completely disappeared from my life. I lifted my head, looking at the starry sky. The phone rang. It was an unknown number. I hesitated but answered. From the other end came a young, magnetic male voice. Is this Miss Lynn? I'm a professor in the architecture department at XX University. I saw your work in the City of Light design competition. It's stunning. Would you be interested in coming to our school to give a lecture to the students? I was stunned. That was a dream I abandoned long ago because of marriage. I thought I'd never pick up the brush again. Miss Lynn? Are you listening? I came back to my senses, the corners of my mouth unconsciously curling up. Sure. I said, it would be my honor. Hanging up, I looked at the distant city lights and took a deep breath.